Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down what could be the biggest AI launch we've seen yet, the brand new and honestly game-changing GPT-5. So, OpenAI dropped GPT-5 on August 7th, 2025, and they came out swinging with this quote. I mean, calling it their most useful model yet, that's a pretty big deal. So let's actually get into what that means for us, the people who actually use it. At its heart, they're not just positioning this as another update, they're calling it a unified intelligence. And the idea here really is to move way beyond a simple chatbot. We're talking about a single, powerful system that's actually built to think and reason on its own. All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at its arrival, why it's a more reliable partner, how it's a better creative collaborator, the new safety features, and then we'll wrap up with what this all really means.
Okay, first up, GPT-5 is here. So what's new and who gets access to it?
And this right here is huge. You know that little model picker you used to have to mess with? Gone. GPT-5 is now the default for everybody. Free users plus pro, team, everyone. It just completely simplifies things and gives the best engine to every single user right out of the gate.
All right, let's get into what might be the biggest promise of GPT-5, making it a more reliable partner. The big question is, can you finally actually trust your AI?
So that's the million-dollar question, right? How exactly does it pull off this huge leap in accuracy? I mean, did they just feed it more data, or is there something completely new happening under the hood? Well, it really comes down to this brand new built-in reasoning process. It's pretty cool. For the first time, the model literally pauses to think before it answers. So you give it a complex question, and instead of just spitting out an answer, it kicks off this chain of thought to break the problem down into smaller pieces. And then, and this is the key part, it can decide on its own to use tools, like browsing the web or running some code to check its work. Only after all that does it give you a final, reasoned-out answer.
And you can see the results of that thinking process right here. It's just dramatic. Hallucinations, when the AI just makes stuff up. That's been one of the biggest headaches. Well, look at this. GPT-5 crashes that rate from over 20% all the way down to under 5. That's a massive 76% drop. It just makes the answers so much more trustworthy.
And that's not all. I mean, that huge drop in hallucinations is just part of the story. If you zoom out and look at complex jobs, like professional coding or doing deep research, GPT-5 is making somewhere between 45 and 80% fewer errors overall, compared to the older models. That is a total game changer for anyone who relies on this for serious work. And you can see that accuracy really shines when you put it up against the competition. I mean, these aren't just simple tests. We're talking about expert-level benchmarks. In super tough science Q&A and complex coding challenges, it's outperforming the previous best models. And get this, for health queries, it's hitting almost 99% accuracy with a tiny, tiny hallucination rate. That's incredible. So, okay, it's way more reliable. But what about creativity? Building on that solid foundation of accuracy, let's see how GPT-5 is becoming a more creative collaborator and moving past that kind of bland, robotic text we've all seen. Yeah. Anyone who's used AI for writing knows the feeling, right? Sometimes the output is just, well, a bit generic and lifeless. GPT-5 is really trying to tackle that head-on. The goal is not just to be correct, but to have actual quality. We're talking about text that has some style, some real emotional resonance, maybe even a bit of literary flair. And this is a brand new feature that's pretty fun. For the first time, you can actually tell it how to talk to you by picking a personality. So if you need a skeptical take on something, you can bring in the cynic. If you just want the facts, no fluff, you've got the robot. It adds this whole new layer of customization that makes your interactions feel much more personal. Of course, with all this new power, you need better safety measures. So that brings us to our next point. How OpenAI is making GPT-5 safer and more accessible for everybody. Okay, this is a really clever approach to safety. In the past, if you asked for something that was in a gray area, the AI would just give you a hard no. Now it uses something called safe completions. So it might give you a partial response, but then it'll explain its limitations. why it can't go further, and maybe even suggest a safer way to get what you need. It's just way more helpful without crossing any important lines.
And they're also making access to all this power a lot simpler. The whole model family has been streamlined into 3 clear tiers. You've got the full-power GPT-5 for the really complex, heavy-lifting tasks. Then there's GPT-5 Mini, which is a nice, balanced model for everyday stuff. And GPT-5 Nano is a super-fast version meant for quick tasks, maybe even running right on your phone. It just gives developers the right tool for the right job at the right price.
So when you pull all of these pieces together, what does it all mean? What's the big picture here? Well, it's this shift from AI as just a chatbot to AI as a real collaborator. And that's really the key takeaway. GPT-5 isn't just a better chatbot. It's a massive step toward what people call agent-like AI. We're moving away from an AI that you just talk at and getting much closer to an AI that you can actually work with, one that can plan, use its own tools, and carry out tasks for you. That's a fundamental change. And that really leaves us with this big, forward-looking question to chew on. This kind of technology is becoming more than just a tool that finds answers for us. It's turning into a genuine partner in creating things and solving problems. So the real question that we all have to start thinking about is, what are we going to build together?